All right, still good morning, I think, isn't it? Come on in if there's a few more. Yeah, take your time. It's all right. It's just me up here. All right. So this is a, as you'll see, this is a talk that's taken me a while to write, probably about 20 years in hindsight. Obviously, I didn't sit at PowerPoint for 20 years because that would just be stupid. But I've chosen it to call it Mission Impossible because I kind of have a mission for you, right? And I kind of expect that you'll accept it, to be honest. Let's put it, it's something that will probably make your life better, but you're probably also going to think I'm an idiot. There's those choices. But this is it's a very, very subjective talk. It's a very, very personal talk, and I hope that you get, at least some of it, that some of it will stick, right? So let's just start with me. Yeah, I know, that's me. So that's the first 20 years of my life, pretty uneventful, doing kid stuff, little boy things, playing in the dirt, whatever that might be. And just a side note, that's my son. I have cloned, and I do apologize in advance. So the last 20 years of my life kind of went from here to there to there, right? And they were essentially split into two, 10 years and 10 years, more or less. The first 10 years were fumbling, trying to figure out what the hell I was doing, who I was. When you go through that time, you don't think that's what you're doing. You only find that out later, which kind of sucks. I wish someone told me that, because it would have been a lot easier to get together all the knowledge, right? But you go through this time, however long it is. For me, it was about 10 years. And then I figured out, oh, shit, what am I doing? Who am I? I got to do something, right? So that was the rest of the last 10 years, of the 20. The last 10 years was trying to figure out how I collate all this stuff. How do I... My OCD played in here, I must admit. I'm like, okay, I've got a box. I need to put things in that box. It's not how life works, unfortunately, but I tried anyway. Now, the reason I had 10 years and 10 years was that I found out my wife was cheating on me, and that kind of killed everything, to be honest. And I had to start from scratch, from zero. The one thing you think is you got it, and it's there, and it disappears, right? So essentially, I had to start with Mission Impossible because I had no freaking idea what the hell I was doing, right? And I hope I can kind of convey all of that stuff that I've sort of reminisced on. And again, it is very subjective, but I think you could probably get something out of it. So this is a talk of a whole bunch of nuggets that I've collected I think is worthwhile considering, right? And by all means, ask questions anytime. Just raise your hand. I'll make best time I can to answer any questions, because that's what it's all about. And even the people at the back, you're allowed to ask questions, even though you're kind of sitting there going, I hope he doesn't look at me, right? So let's start. We have 5 missions. Let's call them missions, right? The first one's karma, and as you'll see, I've deliberately put this first because I think this is one of the most important things in the universe. Whatever you want to call it, I call it karma. We've got humility, because being humble is probably one of the traits that humans are pretty shit at. I certainly haven't been that good. Direction, you need direction. Whether that's direction in your life, or direction for your project, or direction for your career, or whatever it might be, right? You need to have some sort of direction. How do you get that? Time. Who here wished they had more time? Exactly. Okay, so some didn't. Right. Right, okay, I need to talk to you afterwards. And then you need to take care of your future self. Right? There's this old, we talk IT, but 20 years probably, saying that you have to code as if your future self from 6 months is a homicidal psychopath that knows where you live. Right? And it's very true. You need to take care of your future self. Okay, so let's start with karma. Is anyone wants to venture or sort of give a definition? What do I mean when I say karma? Anyone? I'm going to get you. No? All right. Yep, thank you. See, that's a good example. Now, to me, this is the most simple thing of all, and I'll keep coming back to this. Don't be a jerk, okay? Just don't. It's so easy to, like, oh, I'm speaking NDC, and you're just sitting there, so you should, like, you just don't be a jerk, okay? Now, this doesn't mean that you can't be ruthless, and maybe you can't have opinions and tell things like they are, but don't be a jerk for the sake of being a jerk, because some people are. We all have had that manager or that colleague, right? And would you ever go up to them and say, hey, I wish you could teach me something about how you do things? No, right? It just benefits no one, absolutely no one. I saw this sign once in Western Australia at a cafe in the middle of absolutely nowhere, and it said, if you can't be replaced, you can't be promoted, right? And often being a jerk is because you are afraid of what you got, that someone's going to take it. And that's never, ever the case. So the more you're not a jerk, the more you share, and my next point is the more you give, the better everybody's going to be off. Okay? Does that make sense? Who here is a jerk? No, sorry. So giving, to me, this is where it all starts, right? Because if you start just taking and taking and taking, people are just going to get annoyed and sick of you and just say, whatever, screw you. But if you start giving, so I was freelancing for a long time, probably about 4 years, and every single new client relationship that I intended to start or that I was chasing, I would give something. Oh, that's cool, but have you thought about this? Give them value, right? Give more than you get. It sounds really cliche, but it really, really works. If you keep giving, I'm not saying you shouldn't get anything in return, but if you keep giving anything, giving as much as you can to people that you meet, whether that's your boss or your colleague or your partner or your kids or whatever, but just make sure that you provide value to them, if you want to talk in a business sense, it's all going to come back. It's karma, right? What goes around comes around, as wherever you went, the gentleman said. This is one of my favorite as well. Do you all know that person that won't shut up? Wow. This really is a Norwegian crowd, isn't it? I will get you thought up, don't worry. Because if you listen, if you talk, you cannot listen. And if you don't listen, people don't care about what your opinion is because you weren't listening to them, right? Don't talk over people. That's one of my absolute things to hate when I talk to people is if they start talking over me because their point is more important, right? Don't be a jerk. So maybe start listening. Own your actions because you're the only one that really can decide them. You're the one that is in charge of your actions. And if you try and project your insecurity through your actions on someone else, it's just going to end in disaster. It really is. That's all there is to say about that. Who here gets offended? Right? This is always a bit of a... Exactly. Thanks, Dave. There's this... I've got to be careful how I choose my words now, but diversity right now is one of those things that we go, we must have diversity, right? And I'm all for it. I call it inclusiveness because I don't really care who you are in terms of race, color, religion, whatever. If you can add value and we can help each other out and it's cool and we enjoy, and that's all. That's it, right? But if you don't like my opinion, you're absolutely entitled to be offended. Absolutely, that's your right. But I don't care, right? If you want to be offended, go for it. And at the same time, don't worry about people being offended for what you say. Again, don't be a jerk about it. I'm not saying offend people on purpose by calling them names or whatever, because that's just being a bully. But you're entitled to have your opinion, and you're entitled to have your direction, and you're entitled to have your say in how you do things, right? If people want to be offended, that's okay. They're allowed to. Does that make sense? Does anyone completely disagree with that? There's always one. No? Is this because you don't want to put your hand up? Any questions? Because there are questions. I know that you sit with questions that you just don't want to answer. I don't want to ask, because it always happens.
How do you make sure this code doesn't get used in a very bad way?
How do I make sure that what? Sorry.
I want to choose my words like you did again.
Yeah.
What would be a good way to try to avoid, not necessarily guarantee, but try to avoid this particular tip going downhill in your name?
Yeah, it's a good question. How would you try and make sure that this doesn't go downhill? Right? If you're being a jerk, it will go downhill because you're being a jerk. But if you have an opinion on something, if I say, no, I prefer C# over VB, or I think JavaScript is the best language in the world, some people will be offended. and they're fully entitled to be offended. But that's my opinion, right? As long as your opinion doesn't go into all the usual racism and bullying and religion and those sort of things, sure. Actually, religion is fair game, I think. But anyway, that's a different matter. So many people are so afraid of that today. Like, oh no, this, because I do a lot of conferences and stuff, and oh no, the speakers are all white, right? We've got to do something about that. Otherwise, some people will get offended and they won't buy our ticket. It's very permanent, and that's probably a fair point, but it just shows that we think about it all the time, right? We don't want to offend people. We're so afraid to offend people. But some people just go into it to be offended. They're looking to be offended, right? And yeah, nothing happens, right? Absolutely nothing happens when people get offended. Humility. You got to be humble. And you kind of go, how does that work when you just said you can offend people? Anyway, but you can. And the thing is, with being humble, with having humility is much more than just having an argument, right? It's, for example, mistakes happen, right? They absolutely happen. But everybody makes mistakes. And this is a bit of a bad one. But they happen. You got to be humble about it, though. The forklift driver could say, hey, you know what? The forklift just went off, and this other guy was waving at me and trying to, or he just say, hey, you know what? This happened, and I'm really sorry about it. It won't happen again. I'll fix it. It's bad, isn't it? It's really bad. Now, from my point of view, I did something almost as bad as that. Is anyone here not from Australia? Also a few. Okay. So you may be aware that we have severe drought right now in large parts of the country, as in it's bone dry, right? What doesn't work well with dry stuff? Yes, fire, right? Guess what I did? Yeah. Last day of season where you're allowed to burn, so just before fire season starts, last year, I just got a bit of garden waste. I just got to get rid of it. I live on a farm, by the way, so it was up the back paddock. It's fine. Set it alight. I had water, hoses and buckets and everything ready. We just had all the grass slashed, so there was almost no grass left, so that was fine. It wasn't going to be, 5 acres of burnt grassland later. It just went completely out of hand. But I talked to whoever it was. I was humble about, I fucked up, okay? But I learned from it. I owned that mistake. And it actually went out, and the council said, hey, you know what? Next time, here's the thing, and here's the other thing. And the fire department said, hey, just ring us. We'll come and sit next to you, right? Because I wasn't trying to do, be all bravado about it and say, oh, I have no idea what happened, right? Just own it. Mistakes happen. This is something that most people don't like, change, because change is scary. And you might sit here and go, oh, no, I like change. I'm good with change. I'm a developer. I do change all the time. But I'm not just talking about development. I'm talking about in general. Things just change. For example, I've done Pluralsight courses for about 5 years. And then about 3 months ago, I said, all right, cut. And I went and worked for a competitor, right? That was a change that I didn't anticipate 6 months ago. But change happened. And if you embrace the change and make the most of it, I'm not saying everything should change. I'm just saying that there is change that will come your way that will make a big difference in your life. For me, this was the absolute perfect time to change. It's amazing, isn't it? Just mesmerized. Yeah? Sorry, yes, Jess.
So if you've got a decision to make, like 2 big roads to go down, how do you decide whether it's the right change to make or not?
Yep, so if you get to a fork in the road, essentially, how do you know which way to go, right? How do I know if I need to, move to another country or take this new career path? Like, I don't know what the choices might be. But if you have 2 major choices, what you're saying, how do you know which one to do? Well, to me, when I moved from Pluralsight to Cloud Guru, that was a huge choice because I could stay and be freelancing, have my freedom, or I could go into a full-time role and get that regular paycheck and do something I know exactly next month what I'm going to be doing kind of thing. I essentially wrote down pros and cons for both. And then I talked to as many people as I possibly could about that they were in that industry and in that space, which we'll get to as well. So it's certainly not something that you just do lightly. But there had to be a change. Was it one way or the other, right? All right. Who here has failed? I'm pretty sure that's every single one of you. I'm sorry. I do not believe anyone sitting here goes, I don't fail. Failing is part of life, right? And sometimes it really, really hurts. I worked as an accountant. I was going to be an accountant. Yes, I know, you can laugh. Didn't work out. I failed miserably at it. I realized that it was all law, and I have no idea about law. I did a business degree because I thought I'm going to make lots of money and I'm going to be a business person doing business stuff. I had no idea. I failed at that. I failed at my marriage. You know, as much as I want to blame the other part for, you know, it was probably me that was pushing as well. So we all fail in various ways, and it's just a part of life, and you have to embrace failure, because if you embrace the failure, that becomes another path that you can take to build a much better life for yourself. And you really can. Like, I love where I live now. I don't live in the city anymore because I chose not to. It was a change that was stupid hard to make, but now I'm so happy I made it. But it was a lot of failure on the way. Here's back to your point, Jess. You need to surround yourself with experts. Because, like, if you want to be really, really fit, what do? Like, physically fit, I mean. Go to gym, or you get a personal trainer, right? You get someone who knows what the hell they're talking about. Right? If you have some sort of weird symptoms for a disease, where do you go? To go to a doctor, right? You don't have to do everything yourself. So if you really don't like tax law and tax, accounting, you get an accountant, right? But a lot of people refuse this and they go, oh, I can't, it's expensive. I won't. Yeah, but it's a hell of a lot more expensive if you do it yourself because you have no idea what you're doing or you don't want to do it. If there's something you really love doing, by all means do it. But don't go around thinking you have to do everything yourself, right? It's really important that you surround yourself with experts. I can't stress that enough. That's the only way that people you see that you look up to probably have lots of people around them that do a lot of stuff for them because they don't either have time, skills, ability, or whatever it might be. All right. Yeah. Get over yourself, all right? This comes back to a little bit of don't be a jerk. So many people think that the world owes them something. Oh, but I'm really good, I should have. No, you shouldn't. No, the world doesn't owe you shit, okay? You gotta do it for yourself. And the sooner you get over yourself and what you think everybody should be doing for yourself, the better you're gonna be, all right? You just knuckle down and do it. It also makes you really appreciate when something good happened because it wasn't someone else that just did everything for you, right? And this is something I know I try and instill on my kids, which is really hard, right? Because they go, oh, can I have the thing? Or can you help me with the thing? Or can you just do this? And you tend to there's a few different reasons. You either go, oh God, I don't have time right now, but I'll just do it because it's quick and I can do it and it'll be done. Or you go, well, you should be able to do that yourself, which I try and do that most times. Doesn't always work. Or you can just say, well, just you don't need to do that. Just do something else. Just get over yourself, right? But kids have this. And it's just perfectly normal. To kids, they are the center of the world, right? But as adults, we should not be. Does that make sense? Questions? Very quiet bunch. Yes, sir. If you're not the center of the world, what is? Would you like to go into a cosmic kind of discussion now, or? Oh, right, from quantum. There is no center of the universe. If I've just read/listened to Bill Bryson's, what's it called? The History of Nearly Everything. Complete History of Nearly Everything, I think. Something like that. And he goes into what is the center of the universe. And essentially, there isn't one. Because it's all going around sweary something quantum, as you said. But no, just seriously, get over yourself. I can't say it enough. And it comes back to being humble, right? It's part of having humility in your life means that you don't necessarily think that people have to do everything for you, right? And when they finally do something for you, go, oh, cool, thank you. All right? Those two words, like thank you, it's really good. It's powerful. Okay, so the third mission is direction. And This is one that's really hard because all these other ones that I just went through were sort of like traits that you say, okay, I'll treat people with respect, or okay, I will, get over myself. But direction's really hard because how the hell do you know where you're going? And I struggled with this for a long time. I had no idea. I had a degree in computer science. Yay, that was good. I could do some software development. I was certainly not the world's greatest software developer. But I had a job. I was doing well with my team and everything was going quite well. But I didn't have a great sort of aim. I didn't have a direction. And I think a lot of people are struggling with this. That's just my personal opinion. I've done a fair amount of mentoring of other people, and this is often stuff that comes up. The number one thing is to have goals. Does anyone here do goal setting? Right, it's like 5 people. Okay, what do the rest of you do? No? No one wants to volunteer? Do you do nothing? Sorry?
Flexible goal, really. One, many goals.
Yeah, goals. Yeah.
But they change.
They change. Someone said wing it. Yeah. And that's easy, right? Because you just go, oh, today it's red. Sure, I'll go with red. You wing it, right? And it works well until you get to about, well, not an age as such, but somewhere in your life you go, where's this all leading to? Or maybe it doesn't. Some people are absolutely fine with winging it or with doing the same job for 40 years, and that's perfectly fine. If that's you, awesome, right? It's just not me. So that's why I'm here talking about this. But goals to me is the one thing that can lead to some sort of direction in my life. So I had probably 6 years ago, 5 years ago, I really, really, really wanted to speak at large conferences, but I had no idea. I don't have a problem standing in front of people. I usually can convey a message, but it was all rambling. It was all over the place, right? So one of my goals was to, okay, I will figure out how to do this. So I started signing up for user groups, saying, hey, I'll do a 10-minute talk on something. I started doing sort of half-hour talks at user groups. I started doing larger sort of community events. I got involved with DDD Melbourne. If anyone's heard of DDD Melbourne, it was just on last weekend. I started figuring out what is involved with being a speaker at larger conferences. And I reached that goal when I spoke at NDC Oslo about 4 years ago. That was cool, because it was something I set out to do. I wasn't winging it. I was very deliberately saying, okay, what do I need to do? What are the steps to do this? And you can do this with anything, right? This is not a goal-setting talk, but there's so much goodness in setting goals. It's very, very rewarding, incredibly rewarding, because you did it. You set that goal and you got there, right? But it also means that you actually know what the hell you're doing. Do you want to be a senior software developer? Do you want to be a software manager? Do you want to be a practice lead? Do you want to be a CEO? One of the mentors that I'm currently mentoring, she wants to be a C-level executive, and she's currently a developer. So how do we get there? So we start talking about, okay, so what are the steps you need? How do you become the next level in between all this? How do you know what a business does? And we found out ways of achieving that. But it's not something you just fall into, right? It's very, very deliberate in the way that you approach it. So goals to me is just, I could talk for hours about goals. So anyone want us, anyone going to set goals now after today? There's 3 people. That's pretty disappointing.
Well, with girls, it's a problem that if you set a goal, you miss other opportunities. Because you say, I'm going this direction, but it can go wrong.
Ah.
Flexible. You can change direction because circumstances change. Imagine you said, I want to be the best Java developer, and you became 20 years later.
Yep.
So what?
But you're not talking about a goal. You're talking about dreams now.
It's not a dream, it's a goal. You just say, I want to be the best.
Yeah, but you don't do it in 20 years. So the question, I'll just recap the question is, but why do you need goals? Because they box you in. You lose other opportunities if you set goals, is what you're saying. And I 100% disagree. Because there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, this goal that I just created now and I'm going for, there's nothing wrong with abandoning it if it becomes either infeasible, if, say, Java developer, well, actually Java is, we found out, But if you don't have a goal, you don't know where you're going, right? You're winging it. And you're looking just for an opportunity. How do you know what the opportunity is if you don't have a goal?
Well, you look for opportunities and make a goal
Well, you have,
Well, I'm
okay.
a good speaker, so I wouldn't actually put a goal to become a speaker
Yeah.
in a conferences, right? So because if I failed first in 3 attempts, 5 attempts, so probably I shouldn't do that.
See, again, so you're saying if you fail often, you probably shouldn't do it. And again, I completely disagree. That winning is failing over and over and over again, right? The more no's you get, the closer you are to a yes. And the reason that you give up is because your persistence, as we'll get to shortly, just isn't right. And it wasn't that important to you in the first place. But we can have this discussion afterwards because I can keep going about that. Get out of your comfort zone. It's so easy to say, hey, I'm really good at this. I am the best Android developer in the world. I'm really happy with what I'm doing. But at some point, you kind of get relaxed and you just do it and it becomes a routine and you just, it's just what you do. And there's no purpose with it as such, right? So my shift, for example, from Pluralsight to Cloud Guru, I went from doing Pluralsight courses, which is very much, hey, I got a great idea of something I'm really good at. I can do a course on it. Pluralsight goes, yes, no, maybe, whatever it might be. But I kind of choose, right? Whereas to now with Cloud Guru, I am the Azure instructor. All I do is Azure courses in IT Pro, which I have no idea about, right? None. So I'm learning now, how do you automate the deployment of a virtual machine with networking? Like, I don't know, someone else did that before, I just developed for it, right? So get out of your comfort zone, because that's how you push yourself. I'm not saying completely abandon everything you know and like go from development to truck driving necessarily, but push yourself, right? Don't be content with just what things are. And that's also hard because you may have a family. I'm sure most people have a family. If you have little kids, they demand so much time that it becomes really easy to just sort of go, oh, I'm just going to do this now because it's easy and I can focus on the kids. And I'm fine with that if that's your choice. I'm just saying you can do more, right? Don't let your kids become the excuse for you not doing anything, because everything your kids see is you, what you're doing, right? They copy everything you do. So, but that's probably a contentious issue as well. I'm not going to tell people how to parent. That's not the idea, because that's not my place at all to tell you anything about that. But there are certain things that I think are worth chasing, even though whatever your circumstances might be.
How do you avoid burning out?
How do you avoid burning out? I haven't included that on purpose because it's almost a whole talk in itself. But it is a really good question because it's very easy to, especially a little bit in a few slides, I'll have something about learning to say no. Which is a big part of it. But that's a good question, Jess. I'll answer it, but it takes too long. Is that fair? This is really a cliche. Like, I was hating it when I wrote it. Like, believe in yourself. It's like, oh God, it's like some sort of, sleazy romance novel thing kind of. But it is what it is. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else will, right? It all starts with you. So if you don't believe that you can do a thing or you want to do a thing, no one else is going to help you, because they're just going to see what you're doing and go, well, you're not really that serious, or you're not really believing that you can do it, or whatever it might be, right? And it's hard. It's hard believing that you have the skills to do what it is that you do. And goal setting kind of comes back on that for me, personally. There's this thing called, so my other half, she's a life coach, and she helps, especially business owners get over the humps of life. And she has this saying called the birds. Have anyone ever heard of the birds? The birds are generally your friends and family. And when you have an idea, you say, oh, I've got this amazing idea. I'm going to build the world's first iOS Android clone, or whatever it might be, right? And then you start doing it, and then people start seeing, they go, that's never going to work. That's not really a good idea. Why are you doing that? Right, you should do this thing over here. And they peck at you, right? All the birds swarm in, they peck at you, and they keep pecking at you. And what happens eventually? No? No one? Anyone? You give up. Because you go, they're probably right. Yeah, I think, I probably can't do it. Right? So this is not easy, and it's a cliche, but it's just so important that you are the master of you. You believe in what the hell it is that you want. And this is, again, going back to failure, because you're going to fail on this so many times. I've had the birds I moved halfway across the world, and in hindsight, it was to get away from my family. I love my family, but I am nothing like them, right? And they kept going, oh, no, you should get a good job, and a house, and a wife, and It's just not me, right? And the more they keep doing this, because everybody around me was like that, So I didn't know at the time, again, that I moved to Australia because I was trying to get away, but I did. I also had my boss once. My boss once told me that I had no skills in teaching others technology. I should just quit it. Here we are, 28 Pluralsight courses later. I thought that was kind of funny. Don't be a follower. I love this video. Don't do what everybody else does, please. Please don't, because it just, well, it makes everything boring, right? You're just going to follow like sheep, really, essentially. It's amazing, isn't it? I wonder how they stopped them. Anyway, just be yourself, right? Believe that you have something else to offer. You have some other skill that is worth something, that is not what everybody else has. Generally, I like to divide people into the 2% and the 98%. It's a little bit rough, and you can be offended. It's your right. But the 2% are the ones that does stuff, that say, hey, you know what? I'm going to create a conference in Australia called NDC Australia, right? I wouldn't want to do that. And 98% wouldn't. Or it might be that you are, hey, you know what? I'm going to build the new GitHub. Or I don't know, whatever it might be. Don't just copy what everybody else is doing. Copy the bits that are good. That's what we do as developers, right? Yeah. And create something new. Because if you follow, it's just, you're going to get bored. To me, it was, again, moving away from the city, out in the middle of nowhere. I have satellite internet. I know. That's how far away I live. But I just couldn't live in suburbia. But that was just my choice, right? That was my opinion on that. Has anyone got ambition? This is such a broad question, isn't it? But it's just like, have you got that little, or maybe big, kind of flame or fire that just says, hey, I want to do more, right? And that ambition can definitely fuel the direction that you're taking. So if you have your goals and you have, your ambition and you have your, not following people, the direction kind of emerges from that. Well, it does for me. And it says, hey, I really want to do this, but I don't have the ambition. Maybe that's not as important to me as I thought it was, right? So I really, really wanted to make DDD Melbourne, the conference that I organized with about 10 other people, last week, the best that it had ever been. And I spent 4 months doing that, and it was amazing. We even have a robot, I know. Like, yes, goal achieved. Ambition's really important. I even had, when I was at school, I was the typical nerd, right? Did all my homework, first in class, took all the extra subjects, everything, right? I got 3 majors on my computer science degree. Did everything. And I had kids that wanted to beat me up because I had ambition. Seriously, like physical violence because they were threatened by me doing book stuff. Like, seriously. Ambition is so important. And people don't like it sometimes because ambitions give you drive to give you direction. And again, if they're offended, sure. Okay. Questions on that, on directions? Is anyone sort of struggling with this, that they want to share anything? Because if you don't say anything, I don't know if you're listening. Right? You're all sitting here a bit like Norwegians. Belgians. Yes?
How do you go from, like, I've got the ambition and the drive, and you take the step, and you know, shit, it's scary. How do you continue that?
It's a good question. Like, how do you get over the hump of, I have no idea what I'm doing? Yeah. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. How do you get past the just starting, but
Yep. So any, this is again another cliche, but we all know this, any beginning is hard, right? Planning is half the work, because if you know roughly what you're wanting to do and how, or what the end goal is, you can much easier focus on it. And then surround yourself with experts. Get people that know what they're talking about. Get people that can help you in that and get over that hump. That's usually, I don't ever do any of this on my own, rarely any of this. I try and pick people where I can. And this comes all back to time, right? Because time is the same for all of us, right? I don't have any more time than anyone else here. I wish I could buy a couple extra hours on eBay. It doesn't work that way. But it is what you do with the time, okay? And as Jess was was kind of alluding to before. Saying no is maybe not like this, but you know, saying no is really, really important. And it's really hard, especially if you go with my very first thing I said, don't be a jerk, right? Because sometimes it can feel like you're a jerk if you just say no. But you've got to say yes to the right things. And it was what you were saying before as well. How do you know to grab that thing when it comes along? It is having the direction we were talking about before and having those goals and having that ambition to say no to things. Because if you say yes to everything, which I'm really bad at, I love saying yes. It's the one thing yeah, absolutely I'll do that. I just did it this morning. A speaker dinner for a conference. And someone says, hey, does anyone want to do a talk to the speaker dinner? I went, I'm in. And I sent it. I went, oh, shit. Right? I got to write another talk. It was only 5 minutes. But I love saying yes. And it's hard sometimes to say no. But it's so important that you just say no to the things that aren't important to you. Right? And I'm not saying that you have to have an immediate thought of saying no. It could be that it's further down the track. It comes back as a yes. Right? And then that might influence your opinion and go, all right, I'll say yes now because I know there's going to be another thing a bit further on. It's not always yes and no, black and white. Yes?
I just got something for you saying last about goals.
About goals, yeah?
Yeah, like it's kind of, it seems like it'd be easier to say no to things if you were saying yes strongly to something else that you're actually pursuing. Otherwise, if you don't have like a goal, you're looking for opportunities, how can you say really, if you're not saying yes, you can really say no to something else.
So you're asking, are you saying you have to say yes to everything? Or?
Is there a relationship between like actually having goals and also how to say no?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. So is there a relationship between goals and yes, no, and decisions? Absolutely there is. That's why you set goals, so that you know when to say no, right? Because otherwise it might be, oh, you know what? I've always wanted to go to Ouagadougou, which is a real place, don't laugh. But it has nothing to do with any of the goals that I want. So I'm not going to say yes to that conference, for example. Or it might be, hey, that job pays 20 grand more a year, but there's absolutely no path from that job that I can get to where I want to go. So hey, I'm going to say no to that. Whereas if you're a wing and you go, 20 grand more, Xbox, hey, or whatever it might be, right? You might just say yes. So the goals are so important. And they may change, as you said. Goals absolutely change. But you know it, and you consciously make that change to them.
Just back to that, if you don't mind, it's easy to say no to yourself, and it's very difficult to say no to someone else. It's easy to say yes to someone else than to yourself.
That's a really good point, actually. I hadn't thought of it that way. It's easy to say no to yourself. And I find this as well. It's like, yeah, absolutely, I'll do that for you, and then I won't do this other thing for myself. Right? And that's a very good point. And I struggle with that all the time. Leverage, right? You got to have leverage. You got to leverage someone else's skills, time, money, whatever it is. You cannot do everything on yourself. But leverage means that both parties win. You both get more in return than what you gave, right? So it could be that, hey, I've got the time to go and negotiate these 10 houses and buy them. I have not got the $2.6 million to buy them, right? Someone else says, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you $2.6 million, not give, obviously. I'm going to invest that for you, but you do all the work, and at the end, we split the profit, right? Because he does nothing except invest his money, get more money, hey, win, right? And if you are doing all the work and you get half the profit at the end, hey, win, right? Leverage. You've got to have leverage. You've got to find leverage in almost every transaction. If you don't know how to do that, look at your kids. They are the master negotiators of getting what it is that they want, and they use leverage all the time. My son often says, we share it, which means that he gets to play with it, right? Yeah. So leverage. You got to have patience. There's got to be patience involved. There are a lot of people that are incredibly impatient, and it usually is the younger you are, the less patient you are. It's not a rule, but it generally works that way. Patience is tricky because at times it seems like nothing's happening, or you're doing the same thing over and over and over again for a certain amount of time, or whatever it might be. But if you have patience to see your goals through, you're going to get the rewards, right? And who doesn't like Cookie Monster? And then there's, again, persistence that we went back to before. You got to be persistent, right? The road to yes is through the no's. Like, no, 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 no. Everybody's going to say no. And eventually someone says yes. The classic example is Edison and his light bulb. And he had 10,000 or something experiments that didn't work. And eventually he got it. Right? He was amazingly persistent. And it's not always that simple. Again, none of this, what I'm saying is just, oh yeah, that's easy, I'll do that. No, this is something that you work on again and again and again. And failure is part of it. Okay, you ready? Here's a really controversial one. Yeah? Just stop. I'm not even kidding. Stop watching TV. If you want to have more time, that is the #1 killer. And TV, call it what you will, Netflix, YouTube, whatever. Just don't. There's so much time there. And people go, oh, but I need to wind down, I need to relax. Yeah. What happens when you start a series on Netflix? Anyone? You watch the whole thing, right? Because I think I don't even have a Netflix subscription, but I think there's a feature now that cuts the end credits and goes straight to the start of the next episode or something. Is that right? Yeah. They want you to be there, right? And then 12 hours later you go, oh shit, Sunday? Don't watch TV. And I know all of you are going to go, yeah, it's just half an hour. No, seriously, don't watch TV. And especially don't watch those stupid reality TV shows. Because what happens when you watch them? They make more, exactly. You just encourage them to make more. This is the #1 time killer. If you don't think you have enough time, stop watching TV. Watch a movie. I love movies, but they end. There's an ending, right? So yeah, does anyone disagree with this? No? Yes?
I like TV.
I know, we all like TV. That's not my point. You work in TV. But there are certainly ways that you can watch TV as well, right? But it's just those series and the Netflix habits and the YouTube, especially YouTube. It just keeps going and going and going, and it just never stops. But choose, make it part of what you want to see, not what the next thing is that they say you should see. I've never seen Game of Thrones, just saying. No, people are going to leave now. It's like, oh, fuck that. So, all right. Is there any questions on all this? We've got about 15 minutes left. Yes? Exactly. I was hoping that question would come, because it always does. What do I personally do to wind down? I generally go for a walk. I'm fortunate enough that where I live, I can go up the top of the hill and just kind of look at things. I'm terrible at sitting still, though. I might not be the best example. But something like that. Or I watch a movie. I totally can watch a movie once, twice a week, because the movie ends. That's my whole point. It's a finite amount of time that you use, right? So that's, yeah, I always say go outside. Tell my kids all the time. But okay, final mission. You've got to take care of your future self, right? Because no one else is going to. And there's, yeah, anyway, I like that one. This is both the physical and the mental part of it. The physical thing is that you just do some sort of exercise. I know as an industry, we're just terrible at this. There's a few people that are really good that makes us all feel bad. But just do something. I'm not saying you have to be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger or whatever, but just go for a walk, or play with the kids, or go for a bike ride, or whatever. Like, I hate the gym. I cannot stand it, because you're doing all this stuff for nothing. Nothing happens, right? Well, it does, but it feels like, eh. So, you could, by all means, be a dinosaur. Like, whatever works. Take your kids to a trampoline hole, or just something, right? Just make sure you move, because it actually also helps your mind. So, very, very strong evidence that the physical exercise helps your mental capacity as well. Make sure you have time to yourself. This is currently my thing, which some people that have commented on quite a bit. It's a pity there's no sound on it, because there's a really evil laugh at the end, because I love this thing. But make sure you take time to yourself. Whatever it is that is your thing, as long as it's not watching TV. But do something. I like Lego. Oh, that's not everybody's thing. But just do something for you. Do something that's your thing, right? My other half, she likes going and getting a massage, right? That's her thing. Maybe 3 times a week, but that's her time, right? Do something for you. Don't make it all about all the other stuff that I just said. Direction and goals, rah, rah. No, make sure that you do something for yourself as well. Okay. Who here has a passive income? You don't have to tell me what it is and how much and whatever. Okay. Was that 6 hands? Okay, a bit more. All right. Does anyone not know what a passive income is? I should probably clarify that. Okay, so there's 2 kinds of incomes. There's active and passive. Active is you going to a job 9 to 5, get paid for your time and go home. Right? When you stop working, you stop getting paid. That's active. You do something, you change for it. Passive is you do the work once and it keeps paying over and over and over again. Maybe with a bit of work here and there. You may have to maintain things or whatever it might be. So passive income could be you buy a house for investment. It could be you buy some shares, maybe, that pay a dividend. It could be that you write a book and you get $6 every quarter. I have written a book. It could be Pluralsight for me, until recently, obviously, because I kind of cut that off. But whatever it is that can generate a passive income for you. Because who here feels safe in their job? There's a few, right? The truth is that you could be gone tomorrow, right? Probably not. It's very, very unlikely, but you could, right? There's no such thing as a secure and safe job, right? Because as we talked about, everything changes all the time. So having multiple streams of income, especially passive income streams, is really, really, really handy when that gap is there or when you have to do the next thing or you have the idea of, hey, I want to do the thing, you know, the 2% of 98%. It gives you that ability to do that. And it's very hard to get into having passive income streams. It really is. But it comes back to having goals and say, hey, you know what? If I've got a goal, say, I want to, you know, buy a 1-bedroom rental property in 5 years. You work towards that, right? You make it happen. All right. This is really important, especially in our industry. Enjoy learning. We all need to, you know, exercise our mind, essentially. And we all need to have something that urges us on. And I don't care how you learn. I'm not going to tell you that videos is the best or books is the best or whatever it is that you enjoy, whatever works for you. It might be that you watch 5-minute videos about a topic or whatever it is that works, right? But have some enjoyment in learning new things. Personally, for me, I do, and this is not a plug, I like the example, okay? But I do a show for a cloud guru called Future of Tech, and it allows me every month to research a topic and do like a 20, 25-minute episode on what the hell this is. So last one I did was like biotech. I've done quantum computing. I've done, I can't remember, or machine learning. But just things that are, hey, you know what? I want to learn about this thing. Here's an opportunity for me to learn in a way that I like because I have to convey it to someone else for them to learn from it. So whatever works for you. But just find a way that you can learn. And I don't care what you learn. If you want to learn about tax law, go for it, right? But as long as you do something and don't kind of dawdle. This is one of my all-time favorite quotes, and I only just heard it like, I don't know, not long ago, a month ago or something, right? So we probably recognize this dude, yeah? Jim Carrey. We all think of him as a comedian. If you want to have a lot of this kind of content from someone that's really famous and have done it, Jim Carrey is the guy. He absolutely embodies everything I think is awesome about, like, you know, goals and whatever. He wrote himself a check for $10 million when he was, I can't remember, 21 or something, and said, I'm going to cash this. He didn't have a penny. And when he made The Mask, he got that, right? He reached that goal. And he had this saying about his dad that said, and it really touches me, to be honest, why fail at something you love? And he was talking about his dad. His dad was a comedian, gave up everything, became an accountant to support his family, and he got fired at 53 or something as an accountant and failed at something he didn't love. So why fail at something you don't love when you can fail at something you do love? Right? In other words, do something that makes you happy. Right? If you fail at it, fuck it, whatever, keep going. Right? And I thought that was so powerful the way he presented that. So I'm going to steal that. Does that make sense? Right? Don't get stuck in something that you got to go. There's a lot of people that go to work to have time off. Right? They go, oh, it's Friday. Yes. Right? And that's cool. Friday is yes. Don't get me wrong. But you got to look forward to the next thing you're doing, right? You can't just dread on and do that over and over and over and over again. And part of that, in terms of time, is habits. Does anyone know kind of what I mean when I say habits? I'm not talking about drug habits, obviously, right? That's an addiction. I don't know why it's called drug habits. It's an addiction. I'm not talking about addictions. I'm talking about habits. And this is not mine, but there's 3 R's, right? I'll just reminder, routine, and reward is the way that you create a habit. Right? So you got to have yourself reminded all the time to do a thing. It takes about 12 weeks, 3 months to create a habit, more or less. The best example I can come up with what a habit is if you get a driver's license and you're 18 or whatever you are, the first drive you do with your driver's license, you go, oh shit. Like, oh, there's a car with it, and there's a gun, and there's a squirrel, and your mind just go, right? But the more you do it, you remind yourself, oh, that's the gear shift, and that's I got to do the blinker thing, and you keep doing that. And the reward is that you don't die. I don't know if it is, but and then eventually you get to the, oh yeah, I just need to focus on that car there, and he's turning right, and you get to that point, and eventually you get to, was that a red light? We've all done that, right? Exactly. That's a habit. Right? You form a habit. Once it's a habit, you're very likely that you're just going to continue doing it. Now, you can form really bad habits, yes, like TV, or you can form really good habits, but you've got to do it consciously, right? Habits are really important to get over the point of, oh God, I'm exhausted doing this all the time. Because when it becomes a habit, you don't even think about it. You don't even spend any energy doing it. So it could be, for example, one of my bad habits is I wake up, I check my emails. Anyone does that? Exactly, right? Terrible. What happens if you wait an hour with checking your emails? Nothing, right? Absolutely nothing. So that's one of the things I'm working on. Wait an hour, spend time with the kids, whatever it might be. Have a good habit. Anyway, are there any questions? Is there any other questions? No? No? Just in case you're wondering, that's me. Hello. I work for a company called The Cloud Guru, which is based in Melbourne, Austin, and London. And we do online training. And I run DDD Melbourne. Check it out. There's a lot of DDDs around. And I know someone here, not naming names, Jess, is organizing one in the UK. So I'm more than happy. This is my way of giving, is these developer conferences. And I love for it to be everywhere. Like, we help you with everything, almost to the point of giving you money to do it. Because we're doing it for 9 years now. Microsoft MVP, they give me stickers. Lenovo Insider means that I get sometimes machines like this, which is nice because I like the hardware. I run a little consultancy as well on the side where I do currently Texan property tax law software. Yeah. I've written a book for Sync Fusion on HoloLens, and I run a B&B as well in the countryside. So it's just saying, hey, you can do lots of stuff, right? We all have the same time. You can absolutely do all the things that you really want to do. So, your turn. You go do it, right? Is there any questions before I end? Because there's a lot of information, right? Does any of it make absolutely no sense? Or are you like, I don't agree with that? Because I love those kind of conversations. Because I'm not saying I'm right about everything. This is my opinion, right? So, no? Yes? Oh. Yes. Yeah. How do you deal with distractions is a very, very good question. If you find the answer, let me know. I'm terrible. I get distracted a lot. Humans cannot multitask, and I certainly can't. But still, you know when they're doing new email, ooh, right? I'm like the squirrel on that every single time. I tend to I'll use the Pomodoro Technique a lot, which is, if you've heard of music to code by, I think it's called something different now. Or is it still called the same? I can't remember. But Carl Franklin, that's here, from .NET Rocks, does some music called Music to Code by. And it's a 20-minute instrumental act, and I think there's like 20 of them now or something. It's like $2 or $3 per number. It's really cheap. But they're 20 minutes on purpose because it's a Pomodoro technique of, hey, I'm going to do this one task for 20 minutes. And then nothing else, right? And if somebody tries to interrupt, you say, no, I'll be done in whatever's left. But it takes 20 minutes. And you do that thing for 20 minutes. And it works, let's say, 80% of the time, for me anyway. That's one way of doing it. There's a lot of ways to deal with distraction, but it's so hard, especially if you have an Android phone. God. I went from Windows Phone, yes, I know, to Android and just kept going all the frickin' time. So, but it's a good question. It's not easy, though, but there are a lot of different ways that you can try and see what works for you. Anyone else? Yes?
What do you do if your goals become the distractions? For example, one day I want to write a book, the next day I want to write an app, and 2 days afterwards I want to work on a presentation that I was thinking about while driving.
That's really, really, really good question, actually. How do you make sure your goals don't become the distraction, right? How do you make sure you don't go, that goal, that goal, that goal, that goal, that, like all the time changing them? And part of that is scheduling. Like if you sit down and actually write out when you're doing what, that may help. But don't just wing it. If you recognize that that's a problem, find a way to resolve it. I do usually scheduling. I say, oh, this morning I'm doing this. Doesn't always work because there are other things that come in. But generally, if you kind of, and remove, like put your phone on silent or whatever it might be. But yeah, there's some good questions. It's not that easy, all of this. Yes?
Building on the last question, how do you decide from business goals and personal goals?
How do you decide between business goals and personal goals? From what, sorry?
From a personal priority point of view to keep it.
Yeah, from a personal. Are you talking about, hey, do I learn this new programming language that I want to, that I know is good for the business?
No,
Or?
basically, my private life goals, like you said, moving out to the countryside.
Right. They should be separate, ideally. Personal and business goals should be completely separate, right? Because you have time where you do business stuff, you work, whatever it is, and you have time when you do personal things, right? It's not that simple, I know that. We do everything all the time. But they should be very, very separate. They do interject occasionally, but they should ideally be very, very separate. All right, I think we're out of time because people are leaving. If you don't know, if you want to go to PubConf, I'm hosting that tomorrow night at a venue about 15 minutes walk from here. It's hilarious. 10 talks that are very, very, very offensive. No, they're not. But they're very politically incorrect. There's lots of swearing. There's lots of humor, a lot of humor. It's not recorded. And it's, I think, last I checked before the talk, there was 20 tickets left. Pubconf.io. It's a really good night. It includes all your drinks, all your food. Starts at 6. All right, get out. Thanks, guys. Oh.